All right, guys, we are live with Myke Metzger. Um, if you guys are on the replay, give me hashtag replay. If you have any questions in the replay, drop them down below. Uh, just a quick backstory, Mike, and I was telling you about this just a little bit. So you know Adam Wennig, right? That's a good friend of yours, correct?
I do. Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So I went to one of his private office events here in Delray, like a mastermind type thing, and he was touting you, talking about your story, and I'm like, oh, this guy is super cool. And then a month or two later, I see you at Entrepreneur Con, and I'm like, perfect. I get to get to know this guy better. And my experience of you at Entrepreneur Con was like, do you know the quote that Gary Vee says where he's like, watch what people do, not what they say? Have you heard that?
Yeah, definitely.
And that was a situation. Like I was watching what you were doing on stage. I was like, I haven't seen this before. Like you had all your slides on an app or like on a URL. The way you presented it and like the value prop you had at the end and how you engaged everyone after event with your training, I was like, this guy's a genius. So
Nice.
I want to kind of get into like, so people, if people don't know who you are, like, and what RVA social is, like, can you explain that a little bit to people?
Yeah, absolutely. So to fill in the blank of who I am, so I'm 29. I live in Virginia. My company is called RVA Social. It is a full stack digital marketing agency, and we provide digital advertising services for big businesses, also influencers. Many of my clients fall on either side of that fence, right? Either they're a business owner themselves and they run a big company, whether it's a restaurant or a private practice or a financial firm or real estate brokerage. I work with a lot of clients like that. And then there's also kind of the other side where I work with individual influencers. A lot of the people that I've shared the stage with are clients of mine where I'm building their website or running their press or running their ads or their Google AdWords campaigns, things like that. And it's not just me. I've got a full team here. We've got a full office with a staff. A lot of them actually just left to go home for the day. So that's my day to day. That's what I do. Really in my free time, in my spare time, I work on kind of my personal brand. So I've got a network of my own websites that I run. I run a blog called The Social Campus. I just published my brand new book called Credibility Method, and there's a website for that. I run a coaching program called Underground Marketing Hacks, which teaches a lot of what we do here on the day to day, which is advertising. So I'm teaching people, hey, here's how you run Facebook ads. Here's how to run Google ads. Here's how to do press. Here's how to get on podcast interviews. Here's how to use credit for business, things like that. So that's kind of what I do in my spare time, when there is spare time, because this my main business takes
Yeah.
up a lot of my time and energy and resources. But that's what I do. I'm definitely, everything I do falls within the digital marketing space, and I try to travel and speak as much as I can. I got some cool events coming up soon, but everything I do falls within the digital marketing space and mostly heavily focused on advertising online.
Cool, cool. What's up, Paul? What's up, Diana? If you have any questions, shoot them below. If I had to describe you in one word, because people don't, if they don't know you, they probably don't know like your whole story. I would say it's transformation, because like you probably weren't like who you are now, like 5 years ago, correct?
Yeah, no, definitely not. Five years ago, I was kind of an idiot, man. I didn't know any of this stuff. A total different universe from where I'm at right now.
Can you kind of like share like what were some of the lowest lows of your life, and then
Yeah,
where you feel like you got your break?
definitely, definitely. So I'm fortunate in many ways because a lot of my failures and rough times came way before I ever discovered entrepreneurship. A lot of the entrepreneurs that I'm friends with today and people that I talk to, you always have your ups and downs. There's kind of these waves of success and challenging times, and things are great, and then all of a sudden they're not. And that's just part of being an entrepreneur. But I'm really fortunate because the worst times in my life came way before I ever discovered entrepreneurship, which to me is a strength because no matter what I deal with today and with the weeks and the months and years to come, none of it will seem as challenging as where I was before I decided to kind of get my act together. You know what I mean? But to fill people in on kind of some of my challenges throughout my life, especially as a young adult and in my 20s, um, between the ages of like 18 to 24, I was very unhealthy. I was surrounding myself with people that were complete, idiots, and even some of them that maybe weren't idiots. They didn't have my best interest at heart. They didn't want to see me thrive or succeed. And I can't really say that I wanted the same for them either. My mind wasn't in the right place. I was a completely different person. It's hard to even really encapsulate like how to explain who I was as a person, because I look back at photos of me and I think back at who I used to be, and I truly physically and mentally don't even feel like I'm the same person. I feel like that was somebody else. And in reality, like it kind of was. But 18, I graduated high school. And from there, it just kind of went downhill. Started partying, drinking, chasing girls. I was never really good at having a job. I got fired from every job I ever had. I think I had 12 or 13 different jobs. I worked, at grocery stores, car washes. I worked at Walgreens for a little while. Worked at Buffalo Wild Wings. I would always get fired, man. Like always. I would get fired from every job. I think the longest I had a job, I worked at Walgreens for like a little over a year, and I got fired from there. So at about 21, I was like, man, I need to like kind of make a shift here. And it wasn't a positive shift. I decided that I was going to be a bartender. To me, it made sense because I like to drink, I like to party, I like to chase girls, I like to stay up late, like to be an idiot. And this is, of course, back then. So I thought, man, bartending would be like the dream job. And so that was what I did. And here in Virginia, you don't have to have a license to be a bartender. So pretty much anybody can do it. And so I took a couple classes, learned the basics. I got a job at this like cantina place and started bartending. And that was like the catalyst of what really set me off track. Because then my health got even worse. I lived here in the city. I lost my license. I started getting pulled over for driving on a suspended license. I sunk myself like far into debt, ruined my credit even worse, got in like a really unhealthy relationship with this girl, started hanging out with like bad people, man. And it wasn't good. All around was not good. Didn't even have my own place. I was kind of like couch hopping, with living at my girlfriend's house, living, staying with friends, sleeping on the couches and stuff, just getting hammered like crazy. Just being stupid, man. And I did that until I was about 24 years old. And what changed for me at 24 is I actually discovered network marketing, which I was never very good at. But what happened to me is that was kind of like my gateway drug into sales. And sales is what made me realize that I needed to be sharp mentally. Eventually, it made me realize that I needed to be sharp physically. So I got my health in order. And that's when kind of things kind of turned on an upswing and started to get better for me. And that's like, where my story really goes into something that we could talk about for probably a couple hours. But
yeah, you could probably make a documentary about that, man. Like, who would be if you had to pick one person to be your actor, who would it be?
Oh man, one person to be like
to
like
represent you.
Yeah. That's a tough question. I've never been asked that question. That's a really good question. I like that one. I feel like I guess I got to think of like who I really like as like an actor.
What about Hugh Jackman? Is he too jacked?
I was definitely thinking in that direction. I was kind of thinking of like what's his name? Is his name Gerard Butler?
Oh yeah, he's
badass. I was trying to think of people who like that rock the beard well and that like seem kind of like a dick, but they're like kind of nice.
Yeah.
I feel like that's maybe the direction of like an actor. So yeah, like a Hugh Jackman or like a Gerard Butler or like and the other thing is I'm terrible at like I don't know a lot of actors by name. I know the big ones. I know Leonardo, I know Jonah Hill, I know some of these guys, but like some of the actors I really like, I feel like I don't even really know their name a lot of the times. I like Jared Leto. Jared Leto is really awesome, but I don't know.
So when Carlos says Mike Ross from Suits, I don't know who that is.
Oh, I love that show, man. Suits is a good show. Yeah.
Or Harvey.
Mike Ross, yeah, definitely. I like them a lot. I resonate with that show. I don't watch a lot of TV, but I do like Suits quite a bit. That's a great show. And I actually watched it when it like first came out, like before. And this is like kind of the time frame that we're talking about when I was like getting drunk all the time. I actually really like Suits a lot. It's a good show. And it is kind of similar to like my come up a little bit, but
gotcha.
Yeah, those are some good ones.
So you said this on a YouTube video, and I was like, I never heard this before, and it was so unique. I was like, why? And you were talking about why being stupid will make you rich, and how if you become so stupid you don't listen to anybody. Can you go deeper into that? Like, that's an awesome concept.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because like when you first read that headline or you think about the concept, like it's I don't know if controversial is the right word, but you're like, why would somebody say that? Like, that sounds so stupid, right? And in that video, it's a short one, but in that video, I talk about this concept of like, why do you think some of these rappers and some of these people, like they're not exactly the most intellectual people, yet they're wildly successful and make all this money? Like, how does that happen? And my belief is it's because they don't overthink things. They just do it. They have like massive belief, every day they wake up and they think about these things that they want, whether it's diamonds and gold chains and, you know, being at the top of the billboard or whatever. Those are simple thoughts. They put them into action. They believe it with everything they got. And they're almost so stupid that it happens. You know what I mean? It's not, that obviously doesn't apply to every rapper, because there's plenty of them out there that I like personally, but it definitely applies to some of them, you know? But I actually had a podcast interview earlier today at like 2:00, and I was talking about this as well. And here's what I talked about briefly is, back when I was like 22 or so, me and my buddies would ride around the city, and like I live in the city like by a big college campus. And at the end of the student school year, at the end of the semester, a lot of these students, you know, they move out of the dorms and they go back home, or they get their own apartment or whatever. But a lot of the ones that get picked up by their parents and like go back home for the summer and stuff, they like throw away all their stuff. They throw away like headphones and laptops and bongs and like clothes and like all this stuff. And back then when I was 22, I used to ride my bike around with my buddy Jonathan, and we would take all that stuff out of the dumpster. We'd put it in our book bags and we'd go sell it, right? And it sounds stupid, but like we would make money that way. So like if you kind of like inflate that a lot bigger, that same concept of just like making money off of not only other people's like, not like trash, but just dumb ideas, can make people money. You don't have to overcomplicate things. So what I mean by being stupid will make you rich, and what I'm talking about in that video, is many entrepreneurs, and I see people do this consistently all the time, is they overthink stuff. You know, I get questions from people that they'll message me and they'll say, oh, like, where do you get your market data from? And how should I plan out my advertising campaign? And do you think this website looks good? And should I do this? And should I do that? And, you know, what do you think about this idea? And should I do this and upsell that? And it's like all these in-depth conversations. And I'm always like, dude, like chill, like just pick one thing and just take action on that thing. And I'm sure we'll talk about my book in a few minutes, but it's such a great example because I wrote that book in Google Docs, right? Like I just pulled up Google Docs. I wrote a book. It's not even 100 pages. You could read it in 2 hours. And within 30 days, I wrote a book that I know will be a bestseller on Amazon. It's for sale on Amazon. It'll be on for sale in Barnes and Noble and the Google Play Store. But I didn't like obsess over making everything perfect, man. I set a plan and I got it done, and I did it in like 30 days, you know? And that book will do a lot for me. And I wish I could tell people exactly how to just do it, right? But no matter how many times you tell people to just like stop overthinking things and just take action, just do it, for whatever reason, people have this inhibitor. They have like this barrier that won't let them do that. So you got to kind of find like what your personal barrier is and how you can break through that, and just stop overthinking things and kind of let yourself just be dumb. Like stop overthinking it, just take action, you know? And that's the thing, is like, you don't know what you don't know. If you don't overthink things and you just kind of take action and let yourself kind of be stupid, you'll probably achieve a lot more than people that sit back and analyze this stuff, you know, and analyze too much. Because if you analyze too much, you'll kind of, and what's that term? It's like paralysis by way of analysis, right? You know? And that is what happens to a lot of people. And don't get me wrong, it happens to myself a little bit too. You know, I overthink things, and I have a bit of OCD, so I really do like things to be perfect. I really do. But if you do that too much, it's not going to help you. It's only going to hurt you. So that's what I mean, is like being stupid will make you rich. If you don't think about these things and you just take action, you just do it, and stop listening to all these other opinions, and stop trying to read every book and try to read every blog article and download every case study and copy everyone else's funnel. If you just ignore all that and put your blinders on and just like eliminate all the foo-foo and all the advice of all these gurus, and you just do what you think will work, you'd be surprised, because a lot of the times that is what actually works. I had no idea of how to list a book on Amazon. Like, I know that sounds so silly because I find myself to be very tech savvy. Like, I didn't really know how to get a book listed on Amazon. And my book is now on Amazon, and I still could not tell someone else how to do it. Like, I'm not even really sure how that happened. But if I would have went and like tried to like do some research on how to do all this stuff and maybe considered hiring somebody to like get my book on there, I bet you the book still wouldn't be on there. But because I just took action, I did some Googling, and I created an account on like multiple different things. I created like an Amazon Advantage account. I created an Amazon seller account. And like, I'm not even really sure exactly what I did, which is kind of stupid to think like, man, I don't even know what I did. But the end result, which is getting the book on Amazon, is now completed and it's done. But I didn't overanalyze how to get it done. I didn't have to ask a million gurus. I didn't go hire somebody. I didn't download a bunch of case studies. I didn't go to some publishing company and ask for help. Like, I just did what I thought would work, and I did it relentlessly. And it took me a few days, but every day I sat down and I said, I'm going to spend time doing this. I made it a task on my to-do list, and it's done. And it's done. And it didn't take a lot of, education. I still couldn't even go back and tell you how I did it. So
yeah, I love that. It's like, the most important decisions, like, and this applies to everyone, like, you don't want to outsource that. Like, that's something that you want to be doing yourself. And I'd like to unlock there is like, being so stupid that, like, you don't have to listen to anybody, it's all coming from your own mind. So Mark says, what's up? Paul says, great advice. Mark has an awesome summit coming up, Clickpreneur Summit next month. So let's talk about your book. What is in your book? Because I ordered it, but it's
cool.
You're shipping them out soon, right?
Yeah. So they'll ship out. Obviously, this week's almost over, but first thing next week they'll be shipping out. The book actually goes technically live on Amazon and Google Play tomorrow. Once it goes live on there, we'll submit it to Barnes and Noble. But the book is always available directly through my website. So the book is titled Credibility Method. And it is based on, the subtitle is The Simple Method to Establishing Your Credibility and Increasing Your Legitimacy in Your Industry. Okay. It's all focused on how someone can increase their credibility, how they can be respected in their industry, how they can become an authority in their niche or whatever space that they claim to be great at and obviously plan to get better at. Now, the reason I wrote the book is because I speak at these events, right? I've got an event coming up in Dallas with Ryan Stewman. I've got a big event coming up in New York City called eConvention. And when I go to these events, a lot of the times I find myself talking about advertising because that's what people know me as. They know me as a digital marketer. And so I go and I speak on stage, and a lot of times I expect to get these questions about like funnels and advertising and click-through rates and conversion optimization and stuff like this. But it's funny because I always get off stage and those are never the questions I get. The questions I always get are, Myke, like, how did you become the go-to resource in the digital marketing space? Why do these influencers hire you? How did you go from where you started and, living in this tiny little room and, literally hopping couches and couch surfing to now you're speaking on stage with Grant Cardone? Like, how did that shift happen? And I get that question so often that I figured, you know what, this is a very challenging question to answer, in the 5-minute interaction that I have with somebody at an event. So I'm going to write a book about this topic. And that's exactly what I did. And that is what Credibility Method is about. It's not about advertising. It's not about Facebook ads. It's about this method that I call the Trek method. Okay. When I say Trek, I'm saying TREK, Trek method. And if you think about what a trek is, it's like this long, difficult, challenging, arduous journey, right? It would be like trying to climb to the top of Mount Everest if you never did it before. And if that was the task ahead of you, you would want to ask that person, what do I need to do to prepare? How do I need to start climbing this mountain and get halfway? What do I do when I'm halfway, and how do I get to the top? And so I've laid out this method called Trek method, and T stands for tear down. And it covers the process of cutting out your bad habits, eliminating the things that you need to get out of the way, whether that's friends, whether that's people, whether that's negative family members, whether it's bad, unhealthy habits, whether it's smoking, whether it's drinking, whether it's sex, whether it's girls, whether it's guys, like whatever those bad habits and those addictions. And it doesn't have to be like bad addictions. It could be addiction to TV. It could be addiction to video games. It could be addiction to getting distracted on the computer and not getting your tasks done, right? Tear down is all focused on getting rid of those things, cutting out the fat in your life. The second piece of it is reinventing yourself. That is the second phase, where now we've eliminated all the bad stuff. Let's focus on, who do we want to be moving forward? Who do I need to paint the picture of in order to become that person? And that's that reinvention process. And so that's that second phase in the book that I cover. Now, once you've decided who you want to be and how you're going to reinvent yourself, and you kind of, you make this, you kind of, staple this virtual photo on the wall of who you want to be and who you see yourself as. Now we need to establish you as that person. Who do you want to be? Do you want to be that, that health coach that somebody looks up to? Do you want to be that life coach? Do you want to be a real estate investor? Do you want to be a writer? Do you want to be a singer? What is it that you want to be? Now we're going to work on establishing yourself as that person. And through the establishment phase of the book, we talk about having a website. We talk about getting a media kit and how to land small interviews, podcast interviews just like this one, or small local TV interviews, radio interviews, things like that. We even talk about how you can write your first report or your first book, just like the process that I just went through. And that's the establishment process. And then we move into K, which is kick ass. And kick ass is really just dedicated to being the best. Once you've established yourself as this thing, now you've got to commit to being the best and making waves in your industry or in your niche. And that's all about what being, a kick-ass person in your industry is all about. So that's the Trek method. That's what the book is about. It's a short read. It's something that people can knock out in an hour to 2 hours at the most. It's barely 100 pages. And it's supposed to be that way. It's very much on purpose because, people pick up these big books, and I like big books. I know that people do. But to me, like, if I can take small digestible pieces of information and just take action on that, that's what works for me. So that's why I created the book the way that it is. It's designed for somebody to knock out in just a couple hours and then take action on what they learned. It's not a lot of fluff. It doesn't really, it's not about me really. It's not about like my story a lot. It says, look, this is where I'm at now. Let's rewind. This is where I've started. Now let's cover the journey from where I started to where I'm at. But instead of talking about me, I'm talking about the principles that I learned along the way and how the readers can implement those changes and implement the tools that I offer. And when you purchase the book, you get a ton of tools and resources that I give out for free in the book. So that's Credibility Method and what it's all about, man.
I love it, man. Trisha, what's up? Deshauna says, I have his book, Get Guide. Do you have the PDF version of the book you're selling right now? Or
maybe she might have purchased it. I don't know. I do think that the ebook version is available on Amazon today. Okay. Like right now, I do think that you could buy the PDF version. Personally, I like paperback because you can go and highlight and kind of, flip through it whenever. You don't have to pull out like a device. So it's possible. But the funny thing is, in 2015, like barely a year after I started, I did actually release an ebook called The Credibility Book. And it was much shorter. It was 14 pages and it covered like these 3 different pieces. And it was positioning, leverage, and social proof. And I don't know if it was in that order, but it was just a short little 14-page ebook. So it's possible that somebody might have that out there. I know that a few hundred people downloaded it back then, but that little ebook is actually a big part of the inspiration for writing the bigger, longer book. So it is possible, but I don't know. But I did write a smaller ebook.
I'm super excited for this book to come now that you explained it all. If you guys want the link for the book, comment #book. And you have a nice coupon code you're giving out for the book too, right?
I do, yeah. So I'll see if I can drop this in here. Let's see. Maybe I can go to your page and I'll drop it in a comment. But it's credibilitymethod.com, and the book is there. And you can use the promo code podcast, and you'll get 30% off of that book.
That is a sick deal.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and anybody that gets the book, like I said, it's not just a book. Inside of there, I give you a private link to a bunch of free resources that are designed specifically for the readers. So inside of there, you get like a ton of extra cool digital stuff to where you can actually log into the dashboard and get access to all that, which is pretty cool.
Cool. We got some #books. Deshauna says both and the audio. You have an audio version?
So it's hard to say because there's a lot of different audios from me, even just stuff like this. So I don't have an audio version of the book quite yet, but there will be an audio version of the book coming out within the next 2 weeks or so.
Okay, so I have a few more questions, guys. We'll go by the book. For time management, how do you separate, business life from personal life? Because you're a busy guy. Like, you have a team you manage. Like, how are you doing that?
Yeah.
And how big's your team?
Definitely. So I've got a decently big team. So I've got 4 people that work full time here in the office that are here, every day. I've got a few guys that are remote. I've got guys that are in Georgia, Wyoming, Colorado, and then I've got people that help me just for random stuff that are even elsewhere in the world. People that help me with stuff that I'm not good at, like IT stuff and SMTP email stuff, and just things that even for me are a little over my head. So all in all, I'd say about 10 people that are helping me, with my full-time business all the time. Now, when it comes to my personal stuff, and here's the thing is I love digital marketing. I love what I do. And so a lot of my personal stuff I just do on my own, actually. building my websites. When you go look at the book and when somebody purchases that book, like I personally built that website. I designed the cover of my book because I love this stuff. So I do a lot of that stuff on my own, just as a one-man show. When it comes to like Myke Metzger and this brand, it's just me for the most part. But for my company, I've got a ton of help, and super grateful for those guys. I definitely couldn't do any of this stuff without them. But yeah, so I hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah. How long was it? Like how long has your agency been around?
Yeah, so I started, it's kind of an interesting question. So I started as like a one-man consultant in 2015. And I came up with the idea of RVA Social back then and tried to get it off the ground, and I had a website for it and stuff. But when it really truly became a company was about 2 years ago. And we moved into this office building here. My buddy Mike, who works with me, he helped me move all the furniture in, and we started in just one space, and then we actually expanded and took the whole top floor of this building pretty much. So but about 2 years now officially as like a legitimate company. And before that, what kind of like provoked me to even start an agency was just being a one-man show and just helping people out with social media, charging them by the hour, doing little projects here and there. So yeah, pretty much like that's kind of been my journey. Was like network marketing for a few months, then immediately shifted into more like sales and more like digital stuff. Then started working with influencers and kind of doing consulting for a bit. Then I met Adam. Adam and I built a funnel together that got into the 2 Comma Club with ClickFunnels. And then from there, tried to figure out kind of like my exit process of, okay, how do I take this and make it more than just like myself and kind of a smaller project? How can I build, a bigger real business that's not just digital and impact real businesses, real clients, and kind of scale this thing all over the country, if not all over the world. So that's kind of, like the bullet point or kind of like benchmark process or benchmarks throughout the past like 5 years or so.
Cool. That's some rapid growth, man. There's a question from Zach. He put on the other post. He's like, how do you balance social media for business, not being consumed by it and not having it be a distraction instead of a useful tool?
Yeah, that's right. And I guess you just pointed out the couple questions earlier on like how I separate like personal and business and time management and stuff. So I'll try to kind of touch on like those few topics all together if I can. So
yeah,
one thing, because I would imagine that many of the people watching this might be working from home, right? Like people that are just working from their house and stuff. Fortunately, I don't do that anymore. And it's made it a lot easier to separate work from personal life. Yes, I'm an entrepreneur. Yes, it's, coming up on 8 p.m. here and I'm still at the office. I'm not at my house. But when I go home, like that's my personal time. You know what I mean? Like I'm in a relationship, like I go home and try to be normal. You know what I mean? I try to have normal life. Now, as an entrepreneur, my mind's always racing. I'm always focused on this stuff. I'm always busy. And I wish there were more hours in the day. But to rewind and think back about what I used to do when I was at home is a lot of my separation came from having a specific space in my house that I did my work in. And just like what you have there, like you have and obviously it looks like you've got your own workspace at home. And that's a big part of it too, being able to turn that on and turn that off. But even before that, I didn't have that luxury. Like I was in not even a 1-bedroom. It was just like a studio apartment. So my kitchen and my living room and my dining area and my office were all one thing. And I remember how hard it was. Yeah, I mean, and it was, it's challenging. I remember how hard it was to go from like working at my desk, but like 5 feet away was the couch and the TV. So it's like there was no difference. There was no like real mental on or off switch. It was like I would just bounce back and forth. I would get really, really distracted and it was really challenging. So you got to find a way to at least kind of implement like a workspace and like a living space, no matter how hard that is. A good alternative and something that I did for a while was I looked into a co-working space. And I did that for a few months actually before I blew up and I could afford my own office. I spent, I think like $200 a month and I got like a co-working space. And that way I had an office. And that was when I started to build that habit of like, okay, I'm going to work, and that's how I feel. And that's what I say is, I get up and I go to work, and that's what I do. Even though I work for myself and I'm self-employed, like I go to work and then I finish work for the day. You know, and there's pros and cons to that too. You know what I mean? There are pros and cons to that as well, because, you know, the further you move along, it's almost like you're working yourself back into a job again. But I definitely think as an entrepreneur, you need to work for a period of time and treat your business as a full-time job, to where you are feeling like you're clocking in for the day and you're clocking out for the day. You know, so when I leave here after this interview, I'm clocked out for the day, and this is my job. This is my work, even though it is my company. And, you know, I'm the first to get here and I'm the last to leave. And that's just how it is. Every now and then someone will stay a little bit later than me, depending on, you know, what's going on. But that's how I feel about it, you know. So that's a little bit about how to separate work from personal life. And
Cool.
personal life is important. You know, there's a lot of people that are like, oh, hustle. Like, dude, I don't subscribe to that. I don't think that's cool. Like, oh, hustle all day long. Like, sure, that could be for some people. I know Gary Vee kind of preaches that thing, but like, to me, your personal happiness, your personal health, your personal mental health is way more important than spending 16 hours a day grinding on a computer. You know what I mean? Like, there's a point to where it becomes counterproductive. If you're sitting in front of a computer 20 hours a day and you're not succeeding for some reason, you got to take a step back and say, okay, I'm doing something wrong here. Because if you're really spending that much time, you know, in front of a screen, you're either unbelievably productive, or you're maybe feeling like you're working too much. You know, there's times where people are scrolling through Facebook, scrolling through Instagram. And in this world that we live in, especially as digital entrepreneurs, we can trick ourselves into thinking that we're working. But you got to be self-aware enough, and you've got to be self-critical enough to say, okay, maybe I'm not really working here. Maybe I'm just fiddling with my phone, and maybe I'm not doing anything, which I catch myself doing sometimes. You know, I'm scrolling through Facebook and I'm like, all right, hold on a second. I'm not doing anything. I need and that's what I'll do. I'll take a break. I'll literally go do 20 push-ups and then come back to it. Or I've got a standing desk. I'll say, okay, let me kind of shift what I'm doing here. Let me stand up. Let me take a breath. Let me go take a walk. Let me put some headphones in. So taking a break and taking time off is not a bad thing. So I think prioritizing what you want to do personally first, before you prioritize what you want to do with work, can actually be helpful sometimes. So hopefully those are some tips on how you can separate personal life and work life.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Demetrio says, hey guys, nice to see you. Great talk. Thanks, man. We're going to be wrapping up soon because I don't want to take up your whole night. If you guys have any last questions, ask them below. It's so true what you said too, like your environment. Because I remember my last place, I was so unproductive, and that's because like my office and my desk was literally right next to my bed, and like I didn't know when to sleep. It was such an awkward situation.
Yeah.
But I have one of my favorite questions to ask people, because there's a lot of books out there, and of course your book is a buy. But what is one of your favorite books out there that's changed your life the most?
Definitely. The book that changed my life the most and that I recommend that everybody read is The Ultimate Sales Machine by Chet Holmes.
I was reading that today, dude. No lie. No lie.
Dude, if there is any book that teaches somebody A to Z exactly what to do to be extremely successful, it is that book. And I've read a lot of books. I've listened to a lot of audiobooks. Right now I'm in the middle of reading a book called Profit First. It talks kind of more about like it's more of like the managerial side of being like an executive in a real company, you know, how to pay your employees and how to still make a bunch of money. And so kind of a dry book, but definitely interesting if you're somebody who runs like not that working online is not a real business, but if you're somebody who is like me, who, you know, you're paying rent every month and you've got staff and stuff, I would definitely recommend reading Profit First. But to anybody, you know, if I was talking to anybody and everybody, I would say read The Ultimate Sales Machine. And surprisingly, by the title, it's not just about sales. I mean, it's just about, man, if you want to build $1 million business one day, read that book. I mean, read it ASAP. That's the book that changed my life the most. Boom. Yeah, that book's amazing.
Yeah, I don't know if you know Dana Derrickson Dream 100. He actually got it from this book, which is funny. I was reading through it, I saw it, and I was like, "Whoa, that's funny."
The Dream 100 concept is responsible for making a lot of people a lot of money, including like ClickFunnels. If people are familiar with the ClickFunnels group, Russell talks a lot about the Dream 100. That concept came from the Ultimate Sales Machine book. A lot of concepts. Tony Robbins specifically actually started a consulting company with Chet Holmes So that says a lot about the author. Chet is the guy that wrote the book. And so when it came down to Tony starting his first consulting company, Chet was his 50-50 partner. I mean, he was his right hand number one guy. And unfortunately, Chet Holmes passed away back in 2015. But I mean, it just says a lot about the guy, and even his family and his legacy has continued on, and they all preach, the ultimate sales machine. And so everybody should read that book for sure.
Cool.
And to go back just for a brief second and touch on time management before it skips my mind. If you're focusing on time management, I would recommend that you guys look into the Kanban method. I wish I could take my big 27-inch iMac and turn it around for you guys to see my big task management board.
Kanban, how do you spell that?
It's Kanban. And to give you a quick rundown, for the most part, the way that I describe it is, imagine if you had 4 folders, right? Let's say you had 4 folders to organize your life and your tasks every day, every week, every month, every year. It's basically the process of taking your tasks and moving them from the first folder to the last. So basically you have a backlog, and then you have a to-do list, and then you have an active folder, and then you have a done folder. Backlog is everything that you need to do but isn't on your to-do list yet. To-do list is things that you need to do but haven't done yet. Active is what you're currently working on, and then done are the things that you've completed. And that is the process that I use to organize my personal to-do list, whether it's cleaning the house or whether it's my to-do list of working on my personal stuff, all the way to how we organize everything in the business, our daily to-dos, our weekly, monthly to-dos, quarterly to-dos, yearly to-dos. It's all done throughout Kanban, and that is how we manage our time, manage our tasks. It's also how we measure what gets done every week. So we move these Post-it notes across the board, and then every Friday we take all the Post-it notes out of the done category and we stick them on that Friday on our big yearly calendar. So that way, when we look at the big yearly calendar, every Friday there's a big stack of Post-it notes of everything that was completed through the week, so that if we go back and need to see who did what or what was completed, we can go and see that's done. And then anytime we know, how many things are supposed to be in each category. So you can type Kanban into YouTube, and there's dozens of videos for you to learn how to do it. And you can make your own Kanban board at home for free. So I would definitely recommend that people look into that process.
Perfect. Demetrios, it's a Kanban, Kanban. I kind of do something similar to that. It's not 4, but I do it in Trello. Do you use Trello or?
Yeah, so Trello is actually a Kanban system. It actually is like a Kanban-based software. Kanban was created by Toyota, and that was how their manufacturers developed their cars and the process that they used. And there's actually a whole community of softwares that were designed for entrepreneurs based on the Kanban system. Trello is one of them. A lot of CRMs are based off of the Kanban method. Our custom white label software that we use to manage our clients is based on Kanban. Everything we do is based on Kanban. So yeah, absolutely. I'm familiar with Trello.
What is that software real quick? Not to get too deep. What is the name of that? I'm curious.
Which one?
To manage your clients?
It's just a custom built software. And then we actually white label it. Yeah. We actually white label for other people to use. So you would literally inquire directly with us.
Gotcha. Last question here. What does a legacy mean to you? How would you define leaving a legacy?
Yeah, so I think that's been an ever-changing thing for me. The older I get, and by no means am I old, but it seems to change for me every year.
28, right?
Yeah, I'm 29. I'll be 30 next year, so I'm excited about that. I feel like, yeah, definitely, man. But I think a lot of people look at 30 as this depressing thing, and I'm actually excited about it because I feel like I've hit this benchmark to where my life is headed in the right direction. But my legacy, man, I think when I was 24 and I was just jumping into this, I was excited about the watches and the cars and the money. And that was the legacy. It was I was just going to ball out, and I've been able to do that a little bit. And then after that was done, the legacy kind of shifted a little bit. And I started focusing on more having a family, and what is my life going to look like in 5 to 10 years from now? What kind of, literally empire am I going to build to hand down to my family one day? How can I provide for the people around me that are already here today, whether it's my grandparents, whether it's my parents, whether it's my girlfriend, whether it's my brother, my family, my team, my company. And those are the things that are constantly on my mind. I don't know what the finish line is, and I don't think that anybody really does. I think if you're a true entrepreneur, there is no true goal. I think that goal is always evolving and always changing, because as soon as you set a goal and you hit it, by the time you get there, that goal is usually already changed to something else anyway. So when I think of a legacy, I think of like not this end goal, but I think of like, what are you creating? Whether it's you're creating today or creating, in 10 years, what's going to be there? And I think if I can create, my book, for example, like that's a method. That's something that I feel that I can take responsibility for. And if I can show people the Trek method and the little zigs and zags that I've taken through my journey, and I can pass that to somebody else and they can follow in those footsteps and they can accomplish something, that's a legacy that I want to leave. And I've got multiple of them. I want to leave a legacy with my company. I want to leave a legacy personally with people. I want my book to impact people. These are things that are going to exist long after I'm gone. The internet is a funny thing, man. Facebook will be around for a long time, and there's a decent chance that it'll be here when a lot of us are gone. And even if it's not in this form, it could be in another form, and people will see this stuff. So I think every day we're creating things, and funnels are a lot of these like materialistic type of things that maybe those will be gone, right? But things like the book, Amazon is the highest valuated company in the world. So my book is on that platform. How long is that going to be around? Probably a long time. So my legacy is always ever changing and evergreen and always evolving. But that's my best way of describing it, is like my efforts that go into my company, the relationships that I build with people, my book, and the impact that that's going to leave on people. I think that that's the legacy that I'm still creating and hopefully will grow and leave behind long after I'm gone,
I love it, dude. I love it. Yeah. It's like, for entrepreneurs, it's just by nature, it's ever changing, because like we're not wired to quit. Like we just keep going. So we're going to wrap up here, man. I really appreciate your time. Is there anything else you want to shout out? I know your book, comment #book, guys, if you want the link to the book, should be in the comments, but anything else, where people could follow you?
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, if you just search my name, you can find me on social media and stuff. It's just Myke Metzger. The most active platform is probably Instagram. It's funny because like I'm a digital entrepreneur, but I'm not a big like social person. I'm not posting every day. I post like once or twice a month for the most part. But the way that people can really get plugged in with me is through my website, mykemetzger.com, or just getting my book. And that's kind of where people kind of discover like this kind of underground layer of resources where I really actually communicate with people through my program and through my book and through these resources and stuff. So that would be the number one thing I would do. Search up my name and you'll find whatever stands out to you. That would be the number one recommendation. I've got 2 big events coming up for anybody who would love to attend them. One will be in Dallas, October 17th and 18th. I'll be speaking with Ryan Stewman and Marshall Silver, Ulysses Osuna. Yeah. So I'll be speaking. Yeah, man. So I'll be speaking with all those guys in Dallas, October 17th and 18th. And then I'll be speaking December 9th up in New York City at eConvention with Jeff Bunting and Jason Stone. And there's a bunch of other speakers that are yet to be announced. So those 2 events are coming up. So if you're in that area, get in touch with me and we'll see what we can work out to see if we can get these guys some tickets. But if that's not on the menu, definitely grab the book and get in touch. And that would be my best advice. The best way that you can take as much as you can from, what I provide is through that book and through the live events.
Cool. I'm so excited for your book to come in. I'm definitely going to review it in front of my group and my peeps. Thanks for this time, guys. Give Myke some love in the comments. If you're made it this far, like you're a trooper. And we're going to end the broadcast here, guys. Appreciate you being live, and stay on real quick, Myke. I'm going to ask you a question.
Cool, man. Thanks so much for having me.